Hello YouTube friends, how are you going? That's a rhetorical question, you don't need to answer that. You can't really answer that, that's not really how videos work. Anyway, remember how Wind Waker HD was announced in 2014 to tie us over until Breath of the Wild was closer to release? And remember how there were rumours about Twilight Princess HD, and we were all like, no, Nintendo doesn't like money that much, does it? And remember how Ocarina of Time was announced, and we all thought it was whimsical to wish that Majora's Mask might get a 3D remake too. And remember Skyward Sword? Now I know what you're thinking. Nintendo isn't just about to remake everything, are they? Okay, so no, I'm not saying that there is a confirmation that Skyward Sword HD is a thing. I'm not saying that it ever will be. The purpose of this video is to talk about how good it could be, and what conventions would make it so. I'm not talking about the obvious and expected 1080p resolution and new higher quality textures. I'm talking about enhanced and improved gameplay and changes that would take Skyward Sword, which in my opinion is already a great game, and make it just that much better. Yes, I think Skyward Sword is a great game. Let's get that out of the way now. You may disagree with me, but I have a YouTube video, and you don't.
You will listen to every damn word I have to say!
With that disclaimer out of the way, let's start with the list. Number 7. The Sky. Other YouTubers have made great strides to explain how much better this could be, and I don't disagree with them. Enhanced particle effects for wisps of cloud, a boost in color palette, more interesting destinations, those would all be great, but some of them are beyond the improvements an HD remake could really be capable of. Although, think about Majora's Mask 3D. They added 2 new areas, granted they were just fishing holes. There just needs to be something more to the sky. Just look at this concept art for a Loftwing nesting ground. Doesn't that look so cool? Imagine side missions where you had to help the Loftwings, and as a result of those missions, there would be more of them that came and flew in formation with you and helping you as the skies became more infested with enemies. One approach that has not been considered is stitching together Skyloft and the sky, so that accessing Skyloft is the same as landing at the Lumpy Pumpkin or any other islands around the sky. The Wii U hardware might be capable of rendering all of this together and making accessing and leaving Skyloft feel much more natural and free. And that would be a huge improvement. Number 6. Proper day and night cycles. I mean, I love Skyward Sword. It is up there in my top 5 favourite Zelda games, but I feel genuinely ripped off that I was never able to see a sunset above the clouds, or the Farron Woods at dusk, or some other third thing. The common excuse for no day or night cycle is that Loftwings can't fly at night. However, there are knights who swoop in to your rescue if you happen to fall off the edge in the middle of the night. So your Loftwing could too, right? I'll explain more on this later on. Again, day and night cycles are probably a hardware limitation on the Wii that the Wii U will have no problem chewing through, as we've all seen from the footage of Breath of the Wild. Mumbo Numbo 50.
Well done, Zelda, but you have a lot to learn before you become a master.
The controls. I know people had problems with the motion controls. I'm not going to deny that people had problems with them. Even I had a temporary headache with the flying mechanic in the Loftwing when I first started too. And that beetle can go fuck itself sometimes. Actually, I don't know if it can. Over time, I did adapt to the motion controls. I'm sure players who gave it a second playthrough did too. As such, I'm going to make the controversial remark that motion controls stay. They're just an integral part of the game. But what about the puzzles? What about flying the Loftwing?
Loftwing.
What
Flying Loftwing.
What about the combat?
The combat.
Look, can you just cut that out?
I'm sorry, I just have
I'm trying to
nothing
get a
else to
countdown.
do.
You're doing that.
We're meant to be
Yeah, I
making
know.
a master sword out of
Yeah,
plywood.
okay.
Like you promised.
Look, just
Like you promised your viewers.
We'll talk about that.
Remember the series, which you can watch here.
I'm trying to do a video.
This button
Don't
of
do
how
it.
to
No.
make a master sword out
We're
of
not-
plywood.
Don't bring that up now. That's just shameless.
Well, I have nothing
It's
else
just
to
shameless.
do. Can I do the countdown for this video?
Alright, fine. And I know what all you naysayers is naysaying right now. You're saying, just scrap that stuff. Just give us back the B button attack functions, bang all the motion control stuff into the gyroscope of the gamepad for flight and ranged weapons, and replace all the puzzles with something else. But what about rolling bombs? What about that feeling of pulling the sword out of the pedestal? Nearly. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Nearly got it. Just a little bit more. There we go. Or fighting Gurham. What about doing a harp solo? What about my dream of roaming the lands, bringing joy to bokoblins with my song? It's Sandman by Metallica. Can you tell? Oh, and what about the whip? What about the whip? Such a dynamic weapon. Do a trick! Do a trick! What about just standing there and holding the sword in your hand and just twisting around and watching Link do the same thing for hours at a time? Motion controls need to stay, and just to be adjusted to work a little bit better. Also, a nice to have would be adding camera controls, rather than using the Z button to center the camera. It seems impossible. What if Fee was moved to the number 2 button, and the help menu was changed to a sub-menu for her advice? And then the harp could become another item in the B menu. Then the D-pad on the Wiimote during normal play could be configured to move the camera angle left and right, down to zoom out temporarily, tracking back slowly to the natural distance after a few seconds, and up to zoom in when not using a ranged weapon or dousing so that you can still use the top of the D-pad to center the crosshair. And when flying the Loftwing, the C-stick on the nunchuck could provide the same functions of rotating the camera. It's otherwise just useless. This simple change could allow players more freedom to look around the HD rendered environment, and with the absence of a second analog stick, the speed of the camera could be adjusted in the gear menu to the player's preference. Wouldn't it be nice?
4.
Hand-holding. And what I mean by this is the amount of times that the prompts appear on screen to assist the player. Twilight HD went through a similar change. The rupee info screen would appear every time the player found a new rupee after having turned the console off and on again. Twilight Princess HD removed that and saved a lot of sanity. Skyward Sword needs to drop the prompt every time the player finds a new treasure or a bug, as well as the pop-up screen that appears to show how many of the item that you have. It distracts too much from the gameplay. If I want to know how many amber relics I have, there's an inventory screen for that, right? I don't need to f***ing know when I'm playing. A further improvement would be limiting the amount of what Fee has to say on the items that you find. I can recall catching a bunch of tumbleweed the first time I came to Lanaru Desert so I could make the banded shield and a better bug net so I could capture more tumbleweeds. Then I happened to find one in a chest, bringing my total up to 7 or whatever. And then Fee pops up and describes what it is and where I can find them. No shit, didn't you see me just spend 5 minutes running around the desert with my net? You can detect sustained temporal disruptions in the fabric of time, but you can't comprehend that I already know what a tumbleweed is? Don't patronize me! A simple script added into the code to check if the player already has that item could be the decider on whether or not Fi appears to spread her wisdom, or even if this little cutscene happens. Otherwise, move all of that stuff into a little pop-up description when the item is highlighted in the inventory. Make Fee be the descriptor of the items and keep it out of the way when you're playing the game. If I want to talk to Fee, I'll go and talk to her.
3.
More upgrades. The item upgrade feature in Skyward Sword is awesome. But why stop at items? I know that there are potions for these parts, but upgraded knight tunics could provide protected hearts. High quality boots could reduce the amount of stamina used while running, and gauntlets could do the same when lifting and climbing. What else could you upgrade? Well, what about your loft wing? The day-night cycle I mentioned earlier could be debilitating for you at the beginning of the game until you're able to find ancient Lunaru tech to help you make a light for it. A better quality saddle is required before you can learn the spin attack. Other such upgrades could allow for more feathers when flying, and for higher altitudes to be reached, allowing for you to reach some new areas as suggested in number 7. Just imagine how much more open this lineal game would feel.
2.
Amiibo!
Twilight Princess did it. They were going to do it for Majora's Mask 3D. An amiibo for Skyward Sword HD would be awesome. I say that a lot, but it would be. Maybe a Crimson Loftwing, which opens up the area I mentioned in number 7. It would then have a direct correlation to the gameplay for Skyward Sword HD. And following the traits of Twilight Princess, the amiibo would be compatible with Breath of the Wild, perhaps introducing a culture of Loftwing into the wild, the population of which will depend on the amount you helped in Skyward Sword and be transferred onto the amiibo. Just imagine walking through Hyrule in Breath of the Wild and seeing one of these majestic creatures soaring by. And that brings us to
1.
the release. Dual release Skyward Sword HD with Breath of the Wild for Wii U. Make a big deal of the 31st anniversary. Make packages with the 3 amiibo plus the Crimson Loftwing and a 2-disc set. I would vomit my money out for that.
Shut up and take my money!
Even people who are prepared to discard the Wii U version and upgrade to the NX would have second thoughts about it. A collector's edition dual disc release. Man, that would be epic. Not awesome. Epic. The other release option would be going for November to catch the holiday period and delivering a last 30th anniversary special for all of us die-hard fans. Twilight Princess released with 3 months notice, so the time frame is getting a little on because when I wrote this script there was more than 3 months, but by the time I got to recording it, not really. So it's not impossible, just really improbable. That's the end of my list. That brings us to the end of my list. So why do I think Nintendo would do this? Well, the creators themselves were very critical of the original Twilight Princess when plugging Twilight Princess HD. We know that Skyward Sword did not live up to their expectations, and the result was all the extra effort to make Breath of the Wild just so damn good. We also know that Nintendo has been using Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword to test new assets that they were developing for Wii U gameplay, and that the company is renowned for running projects side by side with each other. It's not beyond their abilities to do so. I just hope that we, as fans, haven't trampled the game so much that they've lost sight of just how good it could be. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I had a lot of fun making it, and I might make more like this, eventually. If you've been following my channel, I've got a how to make a Master Sword out of plywood, which you can click on over here to watch. And if you like watching other Zelda theory videos or Zelda content, be sure to subscribe and check out what else I have. Cheers. So how do you think?
Oh yeah, I think that went pretty
Yeah,
good.
you think so?
Yeah, I think people will enjoy watching that video.
Thanks, yeah. I think it went pretty good too. What do you think of the content? Content alright, or should I have
Yeah,
more stuff?
those were pretty good points that you
Wouldn't
brought
like
up.
that. Yeah.
7's probably
Okay,
enough.
Cool. Well,
Yeah,
guess that wraps up the video.
yeah, okay.